Standing there like a mummy. Everybody's dancing. He was being criticized for this because everyone's getting into it, and he's just standing there. Another indication of we don't know what's going on with this guy. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, look, that picture says it all. I mean, the Wall Street Journal out with an article last week about how some are concerned with Joe's cognitive ability. Like in other news, like water is wet. This is an unmitigated disaster for the Democrats. And if you read this political article and you see what their campaign team is talking, they have a discontent for the voter. They the arrogance and annoyance, if you will, that someone should suggest that they're not going to steamroll their way to victory. And it's like it doesn't matter how horrific this inflation has been on you. It's shut up and get in line. Stop complaining. The economy's great because we told you it is. This animus that they have towards the working class, towards everyday Americans, and it's get out of the way. It's time for you to make room for these migrants who will work for a fraction of what you're willing to work for, and will do what they're told. Like, what is your problem? Why won't you get in line? And people have just had enough. And the media can say whatever they want about Donald Trump, but people know and they remember clearly how much better their life was under Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris unveiling her plan to attack France, where she was for D-Day, and Delaware to spend 2 days sitting front row at Hunter's trial. Now, the cost of that estimated to be $345,000. Taxpayers could be on the hook for most of it. Mike, the White House and the Democrats were talking about the cost of this. Democrats claim that they're going to pay for much of it. We'll see about that. Your reaction?
Yeah, look, Joe Biden's there, in my opinion, to intimidate the jurors. So, you know, if you're in Delaware, they know who you are, and they want you to vote a certain way. But look, this entire trial is a distraction. In all likelihood, the prosecution is a violation of Hunter Biden's Second Amendment rights. And, you know, he is a drug addict. So in his mind, so he's lying to himself. So in all reality, he didn't, you know, to him, he doesn't think anybody knows that he is a drug addict. So in all likelihood, he thought he was being honest because he's so deluded from smoking crack. But what the Biden administration has done to try to keep Hunter under wraps in the event that he may try to flip on his father or start talking is they've exposed themselves. And to go after him on these gun charges because of this laptop is just absolutely insane. It's like giving a drive-by shooter a parking ticket. I mean, the influence peddling that exists on this laptop, the corruption, brazen corruption, shaking down of foreign entities and foreign governments by Joe Biden and his entire family that has now been verified and entered into evidence by Joe Biden's own DOJ is just mind-blowing. And now the Department of Justice is saying this laptop is 100% authentic, which they have known since November of 2019, despite these 50-something intelligence officials telling us it's not. Maria, you've been on that since day one. I think this trial kind of epitomizes the disarray that is this administration and the corruption that is this administration.
Well, you make a really good point. And, you know, I asked James Comer about this on Sunday because I think it was a New York Post columnist who wrote on Sunday, this whole gun trial is a distraction. It's a distraction so that people think that the feds are tough on the first son. Meanwhile, the bigger crimes potentially are what... Welcome back. It is time now for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Join me now is Cit Investment Associates Senior Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager Bryce Doty. Also with me is Mike Lee this morning. Bryce, thanks very much for joining the conversation. Good to see you. And Mike, I want to kick things off with you on Apple. Company unveiling a new AI software, Apple Intelligence, in partnership with OpenAI. This happened yesterday during its Worldwide Developers Conference. The new AI system will be offered on all of the Apple devices, but if you have an iPhone, you'll likely need to upgrade it to the 15 Pro model in order to run this software. The stock is down this morning. The company also announced users can tap into OpenAI's ChatGPT when using Siri. But there's pushback coming. Tesla CEO Elon Musk is threatening to ban Apple devices from all of his companies, claiming that the partnership with OpenAI is, quote, an unacceptable security violation. Mike, what do you make of this?
So this is a massive moment for Apple. I think this is just absolutely huge. You have 1.5 billion devices out there. 240 million of them are greater than 4 years old. And this is the upgrade moment. So now, now with this AI added feature to it, this will be about roughly 20% of the Earth's population first foray into artificial intelligence, and this partnership that they're going to put with OpenAI and put AI in the phone in terms of developers. So if you want to develop an app and use any sort of artificial intelligence, or you want to data mine all the information that AI has collected, it's going to go through Apple Services, which is the fastest growing unit of Apple. It is their growth engine. And now I'd imagine over the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see a significant pickup in new device sales for the first time in a long time, because AI should be the impetus for all these people that have slowed down their upgrade cycle, which has hurt revenue for Apple. The stock, fortunately, has held in there, but this is a sentiment moment for Apple. Elon coming out and saying he has security concerns. I don't know enough about that to know whether that's true or not. I do know Elon is about as shrewd as businessman as you can get, and he's doing a great job at stealing one of the kind of transformational moments for Apple. And some other information, every time Apple comes out with one of these major days, except for 2015, almost always the stock is down or flat the day of it, with 3 months later the stock being up anywhere from 5 or 20% based on these worldwide developer conferences. So look, I think this is fantastic news. I think this is a great moment for Apple, because Apple is such a big part of all the major indices, a great moment for the market.
Well, we don't see the stock really reacting this morning. I mean, the stock is down, and I'm still wondering about Elon Musk's threat here, or, you know, risk that he's talking about, a security violation.
Yeah, look, I don't know enough about that, and it could just be Elon out there stealing the headlines, which, you know, he is good at. So that will play out over time, but that's just his companies, and he can have whatever security concerns he wants. But for Apple as a company in the world as a whole, I think this is great news for Apple.
Well, look, these are the themes that have been leading this market.
Yeah, Maria, unmitigated disaster when it comes to inflation. And the inflation that we look at for CPI that the Fed bases their decisions on is very different than the inflation that the average American feels in their pocket, feels when they go to the grocery store, as food and energy are excluded from the headline numbers. And how it's measured is not necessarily tethered to the reality of every day's experience. But I do have to say the one bright spot in this was Trump at the rally with the Cheesecake Factory menu up on the podium, and then referring to the Cheesecake Factory as one of the greatest factories we've ever seen in the U.S. So a little bit of bright spot in this.
That is funny. I like that. I'm glad you brought that up. But Cheryl, under the new coverage, and it is largely among Latinos. Mike.
Maria, he's wrong. That number will be much greater. The amnesty that Reagan passed towards the end of his administration has been lingering in the courts ever since.
Good point, yeah.
You know, the Democrats want every single person that came over the border to stay here in perpetuity, to work for pennies on the dollar, and to vote Democrat. Okay, this is replacement theory is not a theory. It is happening in front of our eyes. Congressional Republicans could stop this by shutting down the government, but they have chosen not to. Okay, Hispanics support deporting every single illegal immigrant in this country by a 2-to-1 margin. Okay, this is universal that Americans do not like this. It is only a subsection of the Democrat Party and the Democrats in charge, and by and large part, the Republican establishment working on behalf of donors to create cheap labor. You have completely thrown the sovereignty of our nation to the wayside. It is disgusting. It's inhumane what's happening to these people by leaving this border open. I understand these people want a better life, but at a certain point, what about the poor people here in America? What about the people who are struggling here? Why does poverty from the third world take precedent over the poverty in America?
It's all the right questions. And, you know, I mean, look, we're taking a look at this now. A concentration of troubled commercial real estate loans on the books of regional banks, and we will see more failures. Dow Industrials right now down 158, the Nasdaq down 58, and the S&P lower by 16 with 30 minutes before the opening bell for the beginning of the Fed meeting. Final thoughts here, Joe.
I mean, look, there's a ton of commercial real estate exposure, not just here in the United States, but we've seen it in Europe with those defaults already beginning to start. If there is a cascade there, certainly that's going to impact the markets and those banks that have that exposure. We already know where that's going to lead.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think there's a problem that people have known about, and it depends on how quickly it plays out. But it is going to be small regional banks that are going to be in trouble on this, which is probably good for the JP Morgans of the world and the Bank of Americas that are going to be able to snap those banks up on the cheap. I don't think there's any chance the Fed's going to raise rates anytime soon. The next move is likely a cut. You have great earnings and an expanding economy, albeit not the way it's been sold. I think the jobs market, the way those numbers comes out are overinflated, but it's still pretty good. So I think we're in a perfect scenario for stocks, and they'll continue to make new highs.
All right, we got the core CPI coming out tomorrow morning. That's going to be certainly the number that markets watch. And, of course, we've got the PPI on Thursday. And we'll hear from the Federal Reserve tomorrow after the two-day meeting, which begins this morning. Michael Lee, Joe Pinion, great to talk with you this morning. Thanks so much.